Far away in the dark emptiness of space, a fleet of massive alien ships moved with quiet precision toward the solar system. Their shapes were unlike anything humans had ever seen. Sleek and metallic, they seemed almost alive as they glided between stars. From the moment the first signal reached Earth, scientists and astronomers knew that this was no ordinary visit. Every satellite in orbit picked up strange energy readings, and the images transmitted back from deep space showed glowing vessels stretching for miles. Governments around the world began to communicate in urgent tones. There was no denying it. Something had come, something that had crossed light years to reach them. Humanity had long speculated about life beyond their planet. Movies and books often imagined friendly encounters or terrifying invasions. But this was real, and the reality was far more overwhelming than anyone had anticipated. Every nation watched as the alien fleet came closer. The United Nations held emergency meetings, and every country with a space program worked together to analyze the incoming threat. Satellites that had been used for research were now repurposed to scan and track every movement of the approaching vessels. The world held its breath. Despite the technological marvels the humans had developed, they felt small in comparison to the alien machines. The fleet moved as if guided by a single mind, perfectly coordinated, yet there was no communication. No signal that humans could understand. All attempts to send messages failed. Simple greetings, even mathematical codes, were met with silence. It was as though the aliens were observing, waiting, studying the humans, and deciding what to do next. From the first day the fleet appeared, Earth's military and scientific communities began issuing warnings. Do not approach the interplanetary borders, read the messages sent by satellites and relayed through global networks. These were areas around Earth that had always been protected, monitored closely by radar, satellites, and experimental defense systems. Humans did not fully understand why these zones were so sensitive, but centuries of exploration and defense planning had shown that some places were dangerous to trespass. It was like the edge of a sacred space, a boundary that had always been respected by every visitor to the planet. But the aliens did not seem to care. They ignored every warning. Messages urging caution, signs broadcast through space, and signals designed to be visible, even pulses of light and sound intended to warn them, were all dismissed. The fleet pressed on, moving past Mars, past the asteroid belt, ignoring the subtle signs that humanity had set as deterrents. They were confident, almost arrogant, as if the humans were too small and unimportant to worry about. And humanity had never faced anything like this before. Fear mixed with curiosity. Experts debated whether the aliens were hostile or simply unaware of human intentions. Some argued that diplomacy could still succeed, while others warned that the aliens' disregard for the boundaries showed clear aggression. On Earth, cities were quiet with unease. News channels ran nonstop coverage of the alien approach. Families gathered around televisions. Children pressed their faces to screens as images of the distant fleet shimmered through grainy feeds. Social media exploded with speculation. Would these beings be like the stories of gentle explorers from the stars, or would they bring destruction? People went about their daily lives, but the air felt charged with uncertainty. Fear was not wild panic, but a constant low hum that seemed to resonate in every street, every school, every home. At the same time, scientists worked feverishly to understand the technology the aliens were using. Even from afar, they could detect unusual energy waves, patterns that defied human physics, movements that seemed impossible. Some researchers suggested that the fleet might be testing them, probing the limits of human knowledge before making any contact. Satellites were hacked and reprogrammed to analyze the alien ships' movements, and computer simulations ran around the clock. The more humans learned, the more they realized how little they truly knew. On the first night that the fleet came close to Earth's borders, strange atmospheric events began. Auroras appeared in regions far from the poles. Strange lights danced across the sky, and electromagnetic interference disrupted communications for hours. People reported hearing hums in the night, vibrations in the ground, and odd fleeting shadows moving in the clouds. Some thought it was the beginning of the end. Others believed it was a chance for history, a moment that would be remembered for centuries. Military forces scrambled jets and patrols to prepare, though no human weapon had the range to reach the alien vessels. The aliens were untouchable, yet the tension was unbearable. Leaders gathered in underground command centers. They debated strategies from trying to negotiate to preparing Earth's defenses for war. Some proposed using experimental technology that had never been tested in combat. Others suggested creating a visual display to communicate to the aliens the seriousness of entering the protected zones. Still, no plan seemed certain. Humans were dealing with beings that had mastered space travel beyond imagination, and there was no playbook for how to approach them. Every decision had the weight of the planet behind it, and yet every option carried risks humanity could hardly measure. Amid all this, ordinary people continued with their lives as best they could. Children went to school, markets stayed open, and people tried to hold on to normalcy. But the presence of the fleet was impossible to ignore. Satellites broadcast images of the glowing vessels as they drifted closer, their surfaces shimmering like liquid metal. News anchors spoke in hushed, serious tones, explaining the technical readings and what they might mean. Anxiety and fascination spread hand in hand. People watched the skies, hoping to glimpse something familiar but fearing what they might see. In the observation towers of the largest cities, astronomers watched with growing concern. Every movement of the alien fleet seemed deliberate, measured, and unstoppable. Calculations were run continuously to predict where the fleet would appear next, how it would react to warnings, and whether there were patterns to its movements. Each scientist tried to understand what drove these beings. Were they explorers, conquerors, or something entirely beyond human comprehension? The aliens' disregard for warnings became the central mystery. Humans had sent signals to show that they were aware of their borders, that these areas were sensitive and dangerous. In response, the aliens moved forward without hesitation. Satellites recorded strange energy pulses around their ships, possibly defensive shields, while ground-based sensors noted gravitational fluctuations that should have been impossible. It was clear that the aliens had technology that could challenge the very laws of physics, and yet they did not immediately strike. This created an uneasy tension, a pause between fear and relief that hung over the world. While governments coordinated, civilians shared stories of small sightings in the skies. Bright lights, sudden shadows, and faint humming noises were reported across continents. Some claimed to see shapes resembling the alien vessels. Others saw glimmers that could have been atmospheric effects. Even as people speculated and feared, there was a sense of wonder. Humanity had finally witnessed beings from another star system, and for some this was a dream come true. Even if it was terrifying, scientists and military leaders worked day and night, analyzing the alien fleet's trajectory. It became apparent that the aliens were testing Earth, moving carefully but deliberately toward areas humans considered dangerous or restricted. Every warning sent by humans was ignored, every signal bypassed. The aliens seemed almost to challenge humanity, daring them to act or react, and in this quiet tension, people began to understand that the coming days would be decisive. The fleet was not merely passing by. They were here for a reason, one that humans might not fully understand, and the consequences of ignoring or underestimating them could be catastrophic. As the first part of this encounter drew to a close, Earth remained in a state of anxious anticipation. Satellites continued their scans. Military forces were on alert, and the people of the world watched the skies. Scientists debated endlessly. Leaders weighed every option, and families hoped for safety. Somewhere deep in space, the alien fleet continued to glide forward, massive, quiet, and unyielding, ignoring every warning humans had sent. The stage was set, the tension high, and humanity stood united, aware that the borders of their world were about to be tested in ways they could not yet imagine. The night sky glimmered with the faint reflection of distant vessels, a reminder that this was only the beginning. For the first time, humans truly felt the presence of beings from another world, and the knowledge that their fate rested on understanding and courage was both exhilarating and terrifying. Every heartbeat seemed louder, every glance skyward more meaningful. As Earth prepared for the events that were about to unfold, the alien fleet remained just beyond Earth's immediate orbit, enormous and silent as though it were waiting for something. Satellites recorded every movement, yet nothing seemed to change. People on the ground watched the skies with a mix of fear and fascination. In cities and towns around the world, families gathered on rooftops and in parks, hoping to see the fleet with their own eyes. Bright glimmers appeared against the darkness of space, shifting slowly, almost gracefully, and their size made even the largest human spacecraft seem insignificant. Scientists, military officials, and ordinary people alike realized that this encounter was unlike anything in human history. Attempts to communicate continued, though success seemed impossible. Messages in binary code, images of Earth, even mathematical sequences designed to show intelligence and peaceful intent were sent repeatedly toward the fleet. Each time the signals were met with silence. The aliens made no sound, offered no visual response, and gave no indication that they understood human attempts at diplomacy. It was as if they were observing, calculating, and deciding how to proceed, while humans struggled to interpret their motives. On Earth, debate raged about the meaning of the silence. Some leaders argued that the aliens might be cautious, unwilling to act until they fully understood humans. Others warned that the lack of response was dangerous. It could mean the aliens saw humans as insignificant or worse, as a threat to eliminate. Military advisors suggested preparing experimental defense systems, even though no one could predict whether these measures would have any effect. The tension was palpable, and every decision carried enormous weight. Meanwhile, scientists worked tirelessly to study the alien technology from afar. They could detect energy signatures that did not match anything created by humans. Waves of power radiated from the ships, seemingly harmless yet beyond full understanding. Some theorized that the aliens were gathering information, testing human defenses, and mapping every aspect of the planet. Others suggested that their arrival was simply a scouting mission, a preliminary step before a larger action. The uncertainty was both terrifying and fascinating. Humanity was confronted with a force that combined immense power with complete mystery. Every night the skies became alive with faint colors and lights caused by the alien presence. Unexplained auroras appeared far from the poles. Strange shadows moved across the clouds, and low vibrations were felt in the ground. People described humming sounds, almost musical, that seemed to come from the stars themselves. These phenomena made people both anxious and curious. The world had never experienced such events, and even as fear spread, wonder took root. Children asked questions that adults could not answer, and families watched the sky, unsure if they were witnessing the beginning of disaster or a historic moment in human exploration. Military forces remained on high alert. Jets and spacecraft were positioned in orbit and around the planet to monitor the fleet, but they could not match the aliens' speed or size. Commanders knew that even a single misstep could be catastrophic. Every sensor and radar system was active, every missile and experimental weapon system ready. Plans were created, rehearsed, and revised constantly, though no one could be sure they would be effective. The alien fleet seemed untouchable, yet humans prepared anyway, driven by instinct, courage, and determination. In observation towers and research labs, scientists argued over what they had learned. The fleet's movements were deliberate but not aggressive. Small drones were sometimes released, flying near Earth's orbit, and then disappearing without explanation. Satellites and ground-based sensors picked up energy pulses that suggested intelligence beyond comprehension. Humans realized that the aliens were aware of them, but the purpose of the attention remained unknown. The fleet was testing, observing, but had not taken any action that could be called an attack. Even as leaders and scientists worked, ordinary people became more aware of the alien presence. News broadcasts showed images of the fleet captured from telescopes and satellites. Bright metallic shapes moved across the sky in slow, controlled patterns. Social media filled with reports of sightings, photographs, and personal experiences. Some people claimed to hear voices or music in the hum of the spacecraft. Others saw lights reflecting in windows or shadows passing over the ground. While the world waited, everyone felt the weight of history in a way they had never experienced before. Scientists continued to search for a way to communicate. Using sound waves, lasers, and mathematical signals, they tried every method to reach the fleet. Every attempt failed. The aliens appeared indifferent to human signals, or perhaps they simply did not recognize them as messages. It became clear that humans were in a position of observation rather than action. They could study, analyze, and prepare, but they could not control the situation. The uncertainty was both frightening and exhilarating, and every new piece of information was a chance to understand the visitors from the stars. As days passed, the aliens began to move closer to areas that humans had designated as restricted. These were zones near the edges of Earth's atmosphere and orbital limits, places monitored for decades as sensitive and potentially dangerous. Humans sent repeated warnings, signals, and pulses designed to warn the intruders to stay away. Satellites flashed coded messages into space, and research teams monitored the effects. The aliens, however, ignored every warning. They moved forward slowly but deliberately, testing the limits of human patience and strategy. Some experts began to suspect that the aliens did not understand the concept of boundaries in the same way humans did. Earth had long been protected by natural phenomena and careful monitoring of space. The borders had been respected by previous visitors, if any, but the alien fleet seemed to treat these rules as irrelevant. Their ships glided through zones marked by humans as forbidden, disregarding every alert. This disregard created a sense of unease, as humans realized that the visitors did not follow human logic or warnings. Even as tension increased, the alien presence created moments of awe. The ship's surfaces reflected the sunlight like liquid metal, glowing with colors that humans could not fully describe. The fleet moved with precision, almost like a single living organism. Observers watched in wonder, understanding that they were witnessing a technological power far beyond human ability. Children drew pictures of the fleet, artists painted their interpretations, and scientists marveled at the patterns of energy and light. Humanity felt small and yet proud to observe such a phenomenon. Meanwhile, underground command centers hummed with activity. Military strategists created simulations to predict the fleet's next moves. Every scenario was considered, from friendly contact to full-scale invasion. Communication systems were reinforced, backup satellites were deployed, and early warning networks ran around the clock. Governments shared intelligence, and scientists worked to understand energy readings, gravitational anomalies, and possible defense mechanisms. Every human effort was focused on one goal: to understand and prepare for what was coming. In the skies, small alien drones sometimes approached close to satellites. Humans observed these movements with fascination and fear. The drones moved quickly, almost as if aware of observation, testing defenses and probing for weakness. Scientists debated the meaning, while military leaders treated every movement as potentially dangerous. Even as the fleet did not attack, humans knew that their presence alone was a test of skill, courage, and intelligence. Despite the anxiety, there was a growing sense of unity. Humanity for the first time faced a challenge that no nation could face alone. Leaders, scientists, and ordinary people came together in ways never seen before. Research was shared openly, satellite feeds were made public, and people discussed strategies and observations across borders. The presence of the alien fleet reminded humans that they were one species on one planet, facing an unknown future together. The nights were the hardest. Every dark sky reminded people that the aliens were there, watching, moving, waiting. Bright streaks of light, shifting shadows, and strange colors became normal parts of daily life. Children went to bed listening for hums in the distance, and parents tried to explain what was happening in terms that made sense. Schools held special lessons, teaching children about space, signals, and the possibility of life beyond Earth. While fear existed, so did curiosity and hope. As the fleet lingered, some humans began to see patterns in their movements. The aliens seemed to avoid certain regions, although not consistently, and their drones often hovered near energy anomalies or unusual gravitational zones. Scientists theorized that the aliens were testing the planet's defenses, mapping Earth, and studying the humans themselves. The mystery of their intentions became a central focus of research and discussion. Understanding the fleet was no longer just a scientific challenge. It was a matter of survival. Every observation, calculation, and warning brought humans closer together. Governments coordinated, scientists collaborated, and ordinary people watched the sky with new awareness. The alien fleet remained massive, silent, and unpredictable. Every day brought new questions, new phenomena, and new reasons for humans to hope and fear at the same time. The world had changed. Humanity was no longer alone in the universe, and the realization brought both humility and determination. The alien fleet continued to drift just outside Earth's borders, ignoring all warnings, moving slowly, deliberately, and with purpose. Humanity waited and watched, analyzing, preparing, and wondering what the next step would be. The tension was constant, the stakes enormous, and every human being felt the weight of history pressing down. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear. Earth would never be the same again, and the story of first contact had only just begun. As the alien fleet moved closer to Earth, the planet's scientists and military forces worked tirelessly to understand what they were seeing. Every satellite, telescope and ground-based sensor was focused on the enormous ships that hovered just beyond the borders of the atmosphere. The fleet was immense, far larger than anything humans had ever imagined. Some vessels stretched for miles, their surfaces reflecting sunlight in dazzling, shifting patterns. The energy they emitted was unlike anything humans had created, pulsing with power that seemed alive, almost aware of its surroundings. The aliens had ignored all warnings so far, moving deliberately toward areas humans considered restricted or dangerous. This disregard worried leaders around the world. Global councils met in secret and in public, debating strategies for the fleet. Some argued for caution, hoping the aliens might leave peacefully. Others demanded action, believing the fleet's behavior showed clear disrespect for Earth's borders and humanity's authority. Every leader knew that any misstep could trigger disaster, yet no one had a clear plan. Humans were facing an intelligence that was both advanced and utterly unknown. Meanwhile, scientists discovered strange phenomena near the edges of Earth's protected zones. Small probes sent toward the fleet returned unusual readings. Energy fields and gravitational anomalies defied explanation, as though some invisible force was active at the borders. Researchers worked around the clock, running simulations and trying to predict how the aliens would react. Some proposed experimental tests to see if the fleet could be influenced or redirected, but there was no guarantee of success. The world held its breath, waiting for the fleet to make its next move. Ordinary people began to notice subtle changes in the skies. Bright flashes of light appeared at night, often following patterns that could not be explained by natural causes. Shadows shifted and danced across the landscape, and faint humming noises were reported in cities and remote villages alike. Children pointed at strange glimmers in the atmosphere, and adults speculated about what they might mean. For the first time in history, humanity truly felt the presence of beings from another star system. The sense of wonder was mixed with fear, creating a tension that affected everyone, everywhere. Military leaders grew increasingly concerned. Jets and experimental spacecraft had been placed on constant patrol, yet the fleet remained untouchable. The aliens moved with precision and control, avoiding all interference. Even small drones deployed by humans to observe the fleet were often neutralized or redirected without explanation. It became clear that the aliens had intelligence far beyond human comprehension. They were not merely machines or simple life forms. They were organized, strategic, and aware of the humans' presence. Every move the fleet made seemed to test Earth's defenses, probing for weaknesses while never fully engaging. The scientists realized that Earth's borders were more than just a concept. Certain regions of space appeared to have natural energy fields that affected the fleet. Satellites detected distortions in the atmosphere and gravitational waves near these zones. Researchers theorized that the alien ships were sensitive to these fields, even if they did not understand their purpose. Small craft that ventured too close often disappeared or were damaged mysteriously, while ships that stayed farther away remained unharmed. The fleet, confident as it was, began to show subtle signs of frustration. Communication among the alien vessels, though unreadable, appeared more frequent and urgent. Despite the danger, humans continued to study the fleet with growing determination. Every observation was a chance to learn, every anomaly a clue. Scientists shared data across borders, collaborating in ways that had never been seen before. People followed news feeds and social media updates about the fleet, discussing every report of lights, sounds, and strange movements. The sense of global unity was unprecedented. Humanity was facing an intelligence far superior to its own, yet it refused to panic. Instead, it worked together, combining courage, creativity, and determination to meet the challenge. As the days passed, the fleet's behavior became more erratic. Some vessels moved in coordinated patterns, while others approached the edges of restricted zones and then retreated. Satellites captured images of strange glows that seemed to surround certain ships. Scientists speculated that the aliens were experimenting with energy fields, or that some natural planetary phenomenon was affecting their technology. Military leaders prepared for all possibilities, ready to act if the fleet became hostile. Yet for now, the ships remained quiet and mysterious, testing humanity's patience and intelligence. People began to notice small signs of hope amidst the tension. Drones sent by humans sometimes returned with data that suggested the fleet was sensitive to certain signals or energy patterns. Researchers began to explore ways to use these findings to influence the aliens' movements. The idea was not to attack, but to communicate in a language the aliens could understand, using subtle changes in energy and light instead of words or radio waves. It was a delicate experiment requiring patience and precision. Humanity had never attempted anything like this before, yet the spirit of discovery and survival drove every decision. Meanwhile, families watched the skies nightly. Bright flashes, strange auroras, and shifting shadows became part of daily life. Children asked questions about what the aliens might be thinking, and parents tried to answer with what little they knew. Schools held lessons on space, energy, and astronomy, teaching the next generation about the mysterious visitors above. The alien presence, though frightening, inspired curiosity, creativity, and a new appreciation for the vast universe. Humanity was learning to adapt to a reality where it was no longer alone. Some experts began to notice patterns in the fleet's movements. Ships often avoided certain areas, and drones frequently lingered near energy anomalies. Scientists theorized that the aliens were mapping Earth, testing its defenses and studying human behavior. Every observation brought new understanding, and every failure taught lessons. Humans realized that they were in a delicate game of strategy and patience. The aliens might be testing, observing, or even warning them, but the outcome remained unknown. The tension was high and every decision mattered. Military leaders remained cautious. Despite the alien fleet's impressive size and advanced technology, humans had one advantage: knowledge of their own planet. They understood Earth's energy fields, gravity, and atmosphere in ways the aliens did not. Some believed that this knowledge could be used strategically to influence the fleet. Plans were made to monitor the aliens' movements carefully and to intervene only if absolutely necessary. Every action was weighed against the risk of provoking a hostile response. Humanity was learning that courage alone was not enough. Intelligence, patience, and strategy were equally important. As the fleet lingered, strange phenomena became more frequent. Shadows stretched across cities. Bright lights shimmered in the sky, and hums resonated in empty streets. People reported feelings of unease as though being observed. Scientists and researchers worked day and night to understand these effects, monitoring everything from energy waves to gravitational fluctuations. The fleet's presence was no longer a distant threat. It had become an active part of life on Earth, shaping thoughts, behavior, and daily routines. The world remained united, even in fear. Governments coordinated with scientists, media, and civilians to share knowledge and maintain calm. Satellites and telescopes transmitted images and data, keeping humanity informed. People adapted to the new reality, finding ways to live with the constant presence of the alien fleet. The mixture of anxiety and fascination created a unique sense of purpose. Humanity was learning to respond to an intelligence far beyond its own, and every observation, every calculation, and every experiment became part of a larger effort to survive and understand. As the days turned into weeks, subtle signs suggested that the aliens were beginning to notice the effects of Earth's borders. Small craft that had ventured too close began to retreat or disappear. Drones occasionally malfunctioned or vanished entirely. The fleet, once confident and steady, now showed hints of frustration and confusion. Humans observed these changes with careful attention, realizing that the planet itself, combined with human knowledge and ingenuity, might be more powerful than the aliens had anticipated. The tension continued to build. The fleet remained massive, silent, and mysterious, yet humans began to see possibilities. Every experiment, every observation, and every adjustment brought new insights. Scientists discovered patterns in energy fluctuations, while military strategists developed new contingency plans. Civilians adapted to the strange phenomena, becoming more aware of the skies and their surroundings. Humanity was learning to coexist with uncertainty, turning fear into focus, and observation into understanding. Night after night, the alien fleet hovered near Earth, massive and imposing, testing the planet's defenses and human intelligence. The skies glimmered with strange lights, shadows moved across cities, and hums resonated in quiet places. Families, scientists, and military personnel alike watched and waited, knowing that every movement of the fleet was part of a larger plan beyond their comprehension. Humanity had learned patience, cooperation, and courage in the face of the unknown. The encounter was far from over, but the lessons of observation, understanding, and unity would shape the days to come. Even as the fleet continued its silent vigil, humans felt a growing sense of confidence. Knowledge of their planet, combined with ingenuity, collaboration, and careful observation, gave them a quiet strength. The aliens remained powerful, unpredictable, and enigmatic, but humanity had discovered something equally important: the ability to adapt, learn, and survive in the presence of forces beyond imagination. The story of first contact was still unfolding, and every heartbeat, every glance at the sky, and every calculation made by humans mattered in the great test that was beginning above them. As the alien fleet moved closer to the edges of Earth's restricted zones, strange events began to unfold. Small vessels that had entered these zones sometimes disappeared completely. Satellites and ground sensors recorded bursts of energy, flashes of light, and sudden shifts in gravity that no one could explain. Scientists worked day and night to study the phenomena, running simulations and analyzing every piece of data. It was clear that the planet itself had defenses that the aliens could not understand. Earth was alive in ways humans had only just begun to recognize, and the fleet was encountering forces that challenged its technology and confidence. The aliens had come in great numbers, confident that their sheer size and power would dominate. Yet every probe, drone, and small craft that moved too close to the restricted zones was neutralized or vanished. The fleet began to show signs of confusion. Signals and communications among their vessels, which had been calm and methodical, grew more urgent and chaotic. The humans observing could not interpret these communications, but the change in behavior was unmistakable. The aliens, despite their power, were struggling to comprehend the planet's invisible defenses. On Earth, the people watched with mixed emotions. Fear remained, but hope began to grow. Reports of vanished alien vessels spread across news networks, social media, and military briefings. Some of the missing craft were small scouting ships, while others were larger vessels that had approached too closely. Governments remained cautious, warning against overconfidence, but civilians shared stories of bright lights and mysterious energy bursts in the sky. Children pointed at glowing streaks of light at night, and adults debated what they meant. Humanity realized that the planet's natural defenses, combined with careful observation and ingenuity, might protect them against a force that had seemed unstoppable. Military leaders were both relieved and wary. Even as small alien ships disappeared, the main fleet remained intact, massive and dangerous. Plans were updated continuously to respond to any direct threat. Jets, spacecraft, and experimental weapons were positioned around the planet, ready for immediate action. Commanders emphasized that the aliens' technology could not be underestimated, and that caution was still necessary. Yet the disappearance of some vessels gave scientists and military experts hope that Earth's natural energy fields could be a key advantage in the unfolding situation. Scientists continued their research tirelessly. They discovered that the energy anomalies near the restricted zones were complex and powerful. The field seemed to interact with the alien technology in unpredictable ways. Small vessels that ventured too close experienced system failures or simply vanished. Large ships sometimes trembled, flickered, or changed course unexpectedly. It was as if the planet itself, guided by forces humans barely understood, was defending against the intrusion. Researchers theorized that the combination of planetary energy and human technology had created a natural deterrent the aliens could not overcome. Even as the fleet faced these invisible defenses, the aliens did not retreat completely. They continued to hover near Earth's borders, observing, probing, and testing. Their movements became less confident and more cautious. Some vessels circled slowly, as though reassessing their strategy. Drones continued to scout the areas, but many failed or disappeared, reinforcing the idea that Earth's defenses were effective. Humanity realized that the aliens' confidence, which had been so striking at first, was beginning to waver. Across the world, ordinary people felt the tension and the hope simultaneously. Bright lights in the night sky were now seen as signs of Earth's resilience rather than just fearsome phenomena. Children asked questions about the disappearing ships, and teachers explained the idea of invisible energy fields in ways they could understand. Families discussed what it meant for humanity to face a superior force and survive. Communities began to take pride in the knowledge that the planet itself had strengths the aliens could not anticipate. Military strategists analyzed every movement of the fleet. While some ships had been lost, the main vessels remained formidable. The aliens' technology could manipulate energy, gravity, and light in ways humans had never seen. Commanders emphasized patience, careful observation, and readiness. Every failed probe, every vanished ship became part of a pattern. Humans began to see that the fleet was testing the limits of the planet's defenses, and that Earth's natural forces, combined with human ingenuity, could protect them if used wisely. Scientists also noticed subtle interactions between the fleet and Earth's energy fields. Large ships seemed to be affected in different ways depending on their position relative to the restricted zones. Some experienced temporary malfunctions, while others changed course without explanation. Drones that entered sensitive areas often disappeared entirely. Researchers realized that the fleet was not invincible. The planet itself was a barrier they could not easily bypass. Humans felt a growing sense of cautious confidence, recognizing that even an advanced intelligence could be limited by natural forces they did not understand. As days passed, the alien fleet began to hesitate more frequently. Some vessels paused near the edges of restricted zones, while others retreated slightly before advancing again. Communication among the ships grew more frequent and urgent, though humans could not interpret the signals. The aliens, once confident and silent, now seemed frustrated by their inability to fully penetrate Earth's borders. Observers around the world noticed the change in movement and tone. Humanity realized that the fleet was encountering limits it could not easily overcome, and the planet's natural defenses were proving their worth. Civilians continued to watch the skies with fascination. Bright flashes, shifting shadows, and humming sounds were now interpreted as signs of Earth's protection, rather than just fearsome phenomena. Children pointed out glimmers of light, and adults speculated about what had caused the sudden disappearance of some alien ships. Social media and news outlets reported theories, experiences, and observations, creating a global conversation about the unseen forces protecting the planet. Humanity was united not only by fear but also by hope and wonder. In command centers, strategists carefully analyzed every event. The disappearance of the alien vessels was remarkable, but caution remained necessary. The main fleet was still a threat, and humans could not predict how the aliens would react to continued interference. Plans were updated constantly with contingencies for all possibilities. Satellites were repositioned, energy readings monitored, and communications tested. Humanity was learning the importance of patience, observation, and careful strategy in the presence of a superior force. The scientists worked tirelessly to understand the planet's energy fields. Their research showed that certain areas had unusual gravitational and electromagnetic properties. These zones interacted unpredictably with the alien technology, creating an invisible barrier that the fleet could not fully penetrate. Researchers theorized that the combination of Earth's natural forces and human observation had created a unique defense system. Every vanished drone, every malfunctioning vessel became evidence of a power humans could not yet fully explain. People around the world began to recognize the significance of what was happening. Humanity had faced dangers before, but never on this scale. The alien fleet was massive, advanced, and confident. Yet Earth's natural forces and careful human observation had neutralized some of their most daring probes. Stories of vanished vessels spread quickly, inspiring hope and curiosity. People began to look at the sky not only with fear but also with pride. The planet itself was fighting for them, and humans were learning to respect and understand its power. Even as the fleet remained massive and silent, observers noticed subtle signs of frustration. Some ships lingered near the edges of restricted zones, circling repeatedly as though trying to figure out a way forward. Drones continued to fail, and some larger vessels experienced temporary system disruptions. Humanity could not read the aliens' minds, but the pattern was clear. The fleet's confidence was shaken, and the planet's defenses were effective. Scientists and military leaders alike felt a mixture of relief and caution, recognizing that while victory was not guaranteed, hope was growing. In towns and cities across the world, ordinary people shared stories of what they had seen. Bright flashes of light in the night sky, humming sounds, and shifting shadows became a part of daily life. Families discussed the significance of the alien presence and the planet's invisible defenses. Schools held special lessons on energy, gravity, and the mysteries of space. Children drew pictures of the fleet and the glowing zones that protected Earth. People felt a growing connection to the planet and a sense of pride in its unseen strength. The alien fleet remained massive, imposing, and mysterious. Yet humanity had learned something remarkable. Even the most advanced intelligence could be limited by natural forces it did not understand. Earth's energy fields and the careful observation and preparation of humans had created a defense that the aliens could not easily overcome. As the days passed, confidence grew alongside caution. Scientists continued their work. Military strategists monitored every movement, and civilians watched the skies with awe and curiosity. The encounter was far from over, but humans were beginning to understand the strengths of their planet and their own ability to respond. Even as the fleet lingered near Earth's borders, humanity felt a quiet determination. The planet itself had proven its power, and humans had learned to observe, adapt, and respect forces beyond their understanding. The story of first contact was unfolding in a way no one had anticipated, and every observation, calculation, and moment of courage mattered. The skies were filled with light, energy, and mystery, and humanity had begun to see that even in the face of overwhelming power, intelligence, patience, and resilience could make a difference. The alien fleet, once confident and relentless, now hovered cautiously. Ships paused, drones failed, and energy bursts marked the edges of the restricted zones. Humanity observed every detail, learning from each event and gaining a sense of hope. The planet's invisible defenses had proven themselves, and humans had discovered that they could survive and adapt, even in the presence of a far greater force. The encounter continued, full of mystery, tension, and possibility, and humanity stood united, ready for whatever the next step might bring. The alien fleet had hovered near Earth's borders for days, yet the main vessels remained intact. Humans had observed the disappearance of smaller craft, but the larger ships were still formidable and imposing. Satellites continued to track every movement, and ground-based sensors monitored energy bursts, gravitational shifts, and electromagnetic anomalies. Scientists were amazed at the complexity of the phenomena, realizing that Earth's invisible defenses were more powerful than anyone had ever imagined. The planet itself seemed to act like a guardian, protecting its people from the advanced fleet that had come from distant stars. Humanity's confidence grew slowly. Observers realized that even the most advanced alien technology could be affected by forces humans understood and controlled. The disappearing drones and malfunctioning ships were evidence of this. Scientists theorized that certain areas around the planet amplified natural energy fields, creating barriers that the aliens could not overcome. Military strategists carefully mapped these zones and used the information to plan monitoring stations and satellite paths. Every observation was a chance to learn, every anomaly a new insight into the fleet's limitations. The fleet had been confident at first, moving as if nothing on Earth could challenge it. But now hesitation had begun to appear. Some ships paused near restricted zones, circling slowly and retreating slightly before advancing again. Drones that had previously explored freely now vanished or malfunctioned. Communications within the fleet, though incomprehensible to humans, seemed urgent and disordered. It became clear that the aliens were encountering limits they had not anticipated, and the invisible defenses of the planet were more effective than anyone had expected. Across the world, civilians continued to notice unusual events in the skies. Bright flashes, shifting shadows, and humming sounds became part of daily life. Children pointed to streaks of light, and families discussed the mysterious energy fields. News channels reported on satellite observations, and social media was filled with stories of bright glimmers and strange phenomena. Even as fear lingered, hope began to take root. People saw that the planet itself was fighting alongside them, and humanity was learning that intelligence, courage, and patience could make a difference against a superior force. Military leaders remained cautious. The alien fleet was still massive and dangerous, and humans could not predict its next move. Jets and spacecraft were on constant patrol. Experimental defenses remained active, and satellite networks monitored energy fluctuations and ship movements. Commanders emphasized patience and observation, knowing that the planet's invisible defenses had proven effective, but that overconfidence could be dangerous. Every action was carefully weighed, and every calculation considered potential consequences. Humans had learned that strategy and preparation were as important as courage when facing an unknown enemy. Scientists discovered subtle patterns in the fleet's behavior. Certain ships seemed affected by Earth's energy fields more than others. Drones that approached restricted zones vanished without warning, while larger vessels experienced temporary disruptions or changes in course. Researchers realized that the fleet was testing the limits of the planet's defenses, trying to understand what made Earth different. Every vanished ship, every malfunction was a clue. Humanity was learning not only about the aliens, but also about the unseen strengths of its own planet. The planet's natural defenses, combined with human observation and ingenuity, created a situation the aliens could not fully comprehend. Energy fields, gravitational anomalies, and electromagnetic pulses interacted unpredictably with the fleet's technology. Small ships failed, drones disappeared, and some larger vessels trembled or flickered. Scientists and military experts worked together to understand the forces at play, developing strategies that relied on careful observation rather than confrontation. Humanity realized that survival depended on patience, intelligence, and cooperation, and they embraced the challenge with determination. Civilians watched the skies nightly, noticing bright flashes and strange lights. Children drew pictures of glowing ships while adults speculated about what the anomalies meant. Schools held lessons on energy, space, and planetary science, helping the next generation understand the mysterious visitors. Families discussed the significance of Earth's invisible defenses and the courage required to face an unknown intelligence. The planet itself had become a character in the unfolding story, acting as a guardian, and humanity was learning to appreciate its hidden strengths. Even as the alien fleet lingered, scientists continued to study the energy fields that protected the planet. Certain regions around Earth amplified gravitational and electromagnetic effects, creating invisible barriers that the aliens could not penetrate. Researchers theorized that the combination of planetary forces and human monitoring created a system the fleet could not understand. Small craft vanished, drones failed, and larger ships experienced malfunctions when approaching these zones. Humanity felt a growing sense of hope, realizing that intelligence and observation could match even the most advanced alien technology. The alien fleet had begun to show frustration. Ships paused near the edges of restricted zones, circling repeatedly and retreating slightly before advancing again. Communication among the vessels, though unreadable, appeared more frequent and urgent. The aliens were clearly aware of the difficulties they faced. They had underestimated the planet's natural defenses and the ingenuity of its inhabitants. Humanity watched carefully, learning from each movement, each malfunction, and each disappearance. Every observation was a lesson in strategy, patience, and survival. Military leaders continued to plan for all possibilities. Jets and spacecraft were positioned to monitor the fleet, and experimental weapons remained ready. Satellites were repositioned and communication networks reinforced. Every failure of the alien ships was studied carefully, providing valuable insights. The humans understood that the main fleet remained dangerous, but they also recognized the opportunity presented by Earth's natural defenses. Caution and intelligence became the guiding principles for every decision. As days passed, the invisible borders of the planet proved increasingly effective. Drones that ventured too close vanished, while small ships malfunctioned or disappeared entirely. Larger vessels trembled, flickered, and changed course unpredictably. Humans realized that the combination of planetary energy and careful observation created a defense that even the most advanced alien intelligence could not easily overcome. Scientists and military leaders alike felt cautious optimism. Humanity had discovered a way to survive and even challenge a superior force without engaging in direct combat. Across the world, civilians became more aware of the strange phenomena in the skies. Bright flashes, shifting shadows, and humming sounds were interpreted as signs of Earth's resilience. People shared stories, news channels reported observations, and social media buzzed with discussions of the alien fleet and the planet's invisible defenses. Families watched the skies together. Children asked questions and communities learned to adapt to the new reality. Humanity had become more united, aware that survival depended on intelligence, observation, and cooperation. Scientists continued to study the subtle interactions between the fleet and the planet's energy fields. Some ships were affected more than others, and drones frequently malfunctioned or disappeared entirely. Researchers theorized that the aliens were mapping Earth, testing its defenses and trying to understand its unique properties. Every vanished ship, every malfunctioning drone was a clue. Humans were learning not only about the aliens, but also about the hidden strengths of their own planet. Observation and careful analysis became essential tools for survival. Even as the alien fleet remained massive and imposing, Humans had begun to see possibilities. The planet's natural defenses combined with human ingenuity had created a situation in which the aliens could not easily succeed. Scientists developed new monitoring strategies. Military leaders prepared contingency plans, and civilians continued to observe the skies with fascination. Humanity had discovered that intelligence, patience, and careful observation could match even the most advanced force from beyond the stars. The fleet, once confident and silent, now hovered cautiously. Ships paused near the edges of restricted zones, drones vanished or malfunctioned, and communication among the vessels grew more urgent. Humans could not read the signals, but the pattern was clear. The aliens were encountering limits they could not overcome, and the planet itself was a powerful ally. Every observation, calculation, and adjustment made by humans became a part of the growing understanding of how to survive and thrive in the presence of a far superior intelligence. Families continued to watch the skies. Schools taught lessons on energy and space, and communities shared stories of the mysterious phenomena. The planet's invisible defenses had proven themselves, and humanity had learned to respect and utilize them. The alien fleet remained massive and imposing, yet humans felt a quiet confidence. Observation, strategy, and cooperation had become humanity's greatest strengths. The story of first contact was reaching a turning point, and every detail mattered. Even as the fleet lingered, humanity had discovered a powerful truth. Even the most advanced intelligence could be limited by forces it did not understand. Earth itself had become a guardian, and humans had learned to adapt, observe, and cooperate to protect themselves. The skies were filled with light, energy, and mystery, yet humanity had found a way to survive, and hope had begun to grow. The encounter was far from over, but humans had learned that courage, intelligence, and patience could create a powerful defense against even the most overwhelming force. The alien fleet had lingered near Earth for weeks, massive and imposing, yet hesitant. Their confidence had been shaken by the planet's invisible defenses and the disappearance of smaller vessels. Scientists and military leaders observed carefully, noting the subtle patterns of hesitation and retreat. The aliens seemed to be recalculating, reconsidering their approach, and perhaps realizing that Earth was not a planet that could be easily dominated. Humans felt cautious hope. They had survived the initial presence of an intelligence far beyond their own, and they had learned that observation, patience, and strategy could make a difference every day. The skies displayed signs of the planet's power. Bright flashes of light shimmered near the edges of restricted zones. Small drones malfunctioned or disappeared, and large ships occasionally flickered and shifted course without explanation. Scientists studied these events endlessly, analyzing energy patterns, gravitational anomalies, and electromagnetic pulses. They realized that Earth itself was a living system, responding to intrusions in ways humans had never fully understood. The invisible defenses were unpredictable but effective, and the aliens were slowly discovering that their technology had limits. Across the world, civilians continued to observe the skies with awe. Children pointed at streaks of light, and families discussed the significance of the phenomena. Schools taught lessons about energy, space, and planetary science, helping the next generation understand the invisible forces protecting them. Communities shared stories of flashes, hums, and shifting shadows. The fear of the unknown remained, but it was tempered by wonder and hope. Humanity realized that the planet itself was on their side, and this knowledge gave people a renewed sense of courage. Military leaders remained vigilant. Even as the fleet hesitated, the main vessels were still enormous and dangerous. Jets, spacecraft, and experimental defenses were deployed to monitor the fleet continuously. Commanders emphasized caution, knowing that the aliens were capable of unpredictable behavior. Contingency plans were ready for any outcome, and satellites were positioned to track every movement. Humans understood that survival depended on careful observation, intelligence, and readiness. The invisible defenses of the planet had proven effective, but vigilance remained essential. Scientists continued to study the fleet's interactions with Earth's energy fields. Certain areas around the planet amplified gravitational and electromagnetic forces, creating barriers that the aliens could not penetrate. Small craft that entered these zones vanished or malfunctioned, while larger ships trembled or shifted course unexpectedly. Researchers theorized that the fleet was testing the planet's defenses, trying to understand what made Earth unique. Every observation provided valuable data, And humanity learned not only about the aliens but also about the hidden strengths of their own world. The alien fleet, once confident and silent, now moved cautiously. Ships paused near the edges of restricted zones, circling and retreating in unpredictable patterns. Drones malfunctioned or disappeared entirely, and communication among the vessels grew urgent and chaotic. Humans could not understand the signals, but the pattern was clear. The aliens were encountering limits they could not overcome. The planet's invisible defenses, combined with human ingenuity and observation, had created a situation the fleet could not easily control. Families around the world continued to notice unusual phenomena. Bright flashes, shifting shadows, and humming sounds became part of everyday life. Children asked questions. Teachers explained the energy fields, and communities shared experiences. People began to recognize that Earth's invisible defenses were real and powerful. The knowledge that the planet itself was protecting them inspired hope and courage. Humanity was learning that survival depended not only on technology and weapons, but also on understanding and respecting the forces of their own world. As the days passed, the alien fleet began to show more hesitation. Some ships lingered near restricted zones, moving slowly and circling repeatedly. Drones continued to fail or vanish, and larger vessels experienced temporary disruptions. Scientists and military strategists observed these patterns carefully, realizing that the fleet's confidence had been diminished. Earth's natural defenses were proving effective, and humans were gaining valuable knowledge about how to interact with an intelligence far beyond their own. Observation, analysis, and patience were key to survival. Civilians continued to watch the skies, noticing that the alien fleet's movements were less predictable. Bright lights shimmered, shadows shifted, and hums resonated across cities and countryside. Families shared stories, children drew pictures, and communities discussed the significance of Earth's energy fields. The planet itself had become a guardian, and humans were learning to respect its power. Fear remained, but it was balanced by pride and hope. Humanity understood that they were not helpless. They had allies in the form of the planet itself and their own ingenuity. Scientists discovered that the energy fields near restricted zones had subtle patterns. Certain areas amplified gravitational and electromagnetic effects, creating invisible barriers that affected alien ships differently, depending on size and technology. Small drones failed or vanished, while larger vessels experienced disruptions or tremors. Researchers theorized that the fleet was mapping the planet, testing its defenses, and trying to understand the invisible forces protecting Earth. Every failure, every anomaly was a clue to the humans observing. They learned that even the most advanced intelligence could be limited by forces it did not comprehend. The alien fleet hovered cautiously near the borders, massive and imposing, yet restrained. Ships circled, drones disappeared, and communication became urgent and chaotic. Humans could not read the signals, but the changes in behavior were clear. The fleet was facing limitations it had not anticipated. Earth's invisible defenses, combined with human observation and ingenuity, had created an advantage that even the aliens could not ignore. Humanity realized that survival depended on patience, intelligence, and cooperation, and they embraced the challenge with determination. Military leaders continued to monitor the fleet carefully. Jets and spacecraft were deployed to track movements, experimental weapons remained on standby, and satellite networks monitored energy fields and anomalies. Every failure of the alien ships was studied as a lesson. Humans understood that the fleet remained dangerous, but they also recognized the opportunity provided by Earth's natural defenses. Strategy, observation, and patience became the guiding principles for every decision. The planet itself had become humanity's ally, and every citizen felt the significance of this invisible protection. As the fleet hesitated, scientists observed new patterns. Ships reacted differently depending on the zones they entered. Drones malfunctioned or vanished, while large vessels experienced shifts or tremors. Researchers theorized that the aliens were testing Earth's defenses, trying to understand its unique properties. Humans learned not only about the aliens but also about the strengths of their own planet. Observation, analysis, and careful planning had become humanity's most powerful tools. Every small discovery built confidence, hope, and understanding. Even as the alien fleet remained massive and imposing, humanity felt a growing sense of control. The planet's invisible defenses, combined with human intelligence and strategy, had created a situation the aliens could not easily overcome. Civilians watched the skies, Schools taught lessons on energy and space, and communities shared stories of bright flashes and humming sounds. The fear of the unknown persisted, but hope and courage were growing. Humanity had discovered that knowledge, patience, and cooperation could challenge even the most advanced intelligence from beyond the stars. The fleet's hesitation became more pronounced. Ships paused near restricted zones, drones failed, and larger vessels trembled or shifted course unpredictably. Humans could not read the alien signals, but the meaning was clear. The fleet was facing limitations it could not bypass. Earth's natural defenses had proven effective, and humanity had learned to respect and utilize the invisible forces protecting them. Observation and careful strategy had become essential tools for survival, and every citizen felt the importance of their shared vigilance. Families continued to watch the skies, children asked questions, and schools explained the invisible energy fields that protected the planet. Communities shared stories of bright flashes, shifting shadows, and humming sounds. Humanity had learned that survival depended not only on weapons or technology, but on understanding, observation, and cooperation. The alien fleet, once confident and relentless, now faced forces it could not comprehend. Humans realized that the planet itself had become a guardian, and hope replaced fear in many hearts. As the days turned into weeks, the alien fleet gradually withdrew from the most sensitive zones. Drones failed less frequently as the aliens adjusted to some limitations, yet the larger vessels remained cautious. Scientists and military strategists continued their observations, learning from every interaction. The planet's invisible defenses had proven themselves, and humans had discovered that even the most advanced intelligence could be challenged by patience, observation, and cooperation. Humanity had survived the first contact and learned powerful lessons about resilience and adaptation. The skies above Earth returned to a more normal rhythm, though bright flashes and subtle hums remained as reminders of the alien presence. Civilians continued to observe. Scientists analyzed data, and military leaders remained vigilant. Humanity had faced a superior intelligence and discovered that knowledge, patience, and strategy were as important as courage. The alien fleet, though massive and advanced, had been tested by Earth's invisible defenses, and the lessons learned would guide humanity for generations. For the first time, humans realized that they were not powerless. The planet itself had acted as a protector, and the collective intelligence, courage, and determination of humanity had contributed to survival. The alien fleet, once confident, had been humbled by forces it could not fully understand. Humanity had discovered that survival depended on observation, analysis, patience, and unity. The encounter with the aliens was over for now, but the lessons of resilience and cooperation would last forever. The night sky glimmered with faint reflections of distant vessels, a reminder that Earth had faced the unknown and survived. Humans stood together, aware that the planet itself was a guardian, and that intelligence, courage, and patience could make a difference even against forces far greater than their own. The story of first contact had reached its conclusion, and humanity had emerged stronger, wiser, and more united than ever before.